For episode 8 of season 3, we'll be featuring multicultural stories in the community. In this episode, we will be focusing on a few multicultural stories as well as celebrating the 15th year of the Nichi Bei Foundation. Many of these stories come from the annual In the Mix Multiracial and Multiethnic special edition of the Nichi Bei News. For our pastry selection, we'll be serving a delicious piece on the beginnings of the Nichi Bei News. For our salad selection, we get a healthy serving of a unique multiracial and transnational experience with our former intern Erkki Forster. For our chef special, we talk with recently crowned Miss California, Kimberly Vernon. For dessert, our resident master chef at the Nichi Bei office, Kota will show you how to recycle your leftovers from Labor Day dinner for a great no Mottainai breakfast. And stick around to be treated to some news bites of happenings in our Japanese and Japanese American community. And finally, we end the program tonight with tips of events that are coming up in the next month and beyond. So without further delay, let's start the cafe. Starting off with our pastry selection tonight, we present a sweet reflection on the beginning of our journey here at Nichi Bei, as our president, Kenji Taguma, and others reflect on that start which manifested itself as Nichi Bei Weekly. Please enjoy.
Hi, my name is Kenji Taguma. I am the president of the Nichi Bei Foundation and editor-in-chief of the Nichi Bei News. As I reflect upon the past 15 years, I remember starting off the foundation, kind of guerrilla style, kind of incognito, as the Nichi Bei Times was looking to potentially close in the summer of 2009. I got together some community leaders, some media professionals, and eventually some staff to start the Nichi Bei Foundation to essentially publish the first nonprofit ethnic community newspaper of its kind in the country. There was no model to follow. In fact, there was an Italian-American bilingual newspaper in Chicago that was looking for a model. They only found us. So immediately after we launched, they tried to seek advice. And I've given consultation to other publications as well. But anyways, we officially incorporated on July 27, 2009, which was a couple of weeks before the staff of the Nichi Bei Times got the word that they were going to close. But I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember getting the notice that today or that Monday was the day that the announcement was going to come from our president at the time to our staff that we were closing after 63 years as Northern California's oldest Japanese American bilingual daily newspaper.
And I originally was hired as a staff reporter for the Nichi Bei Times. About a year after I was hired, we learned that the Nichi Bei Times was closing.
Maybe it wasn't a complete surprise, but it was a shock to come into work one day and find out that morning they had, I guess the board of directors had announced that they were going to dissolve the paper and sell the building.
I was a sports and food writer for Nichi Bei Times since 2006. When it closed, Hokubei also closed a month later. What that meant to the community is the lost connection of Japanese American community and Japanese speaking community.
And I told them, today we're going to have a announcement. It's going to shock you that we're going to close, but we've been working on this successor organization. We don't know what it's going to be like we don't know how. We're still in the development stages, but we're going to try to create a nonprofit publication. So, I hope you can take this leap of faith with me.
And Kenji had let a couple of us on staff know that he had been working with other journalists and community leaders to form a nonprofit. And there was a lot of uncertainty up in the air.
It was sad, obviously. It was also kind of weirdly exciting because it was so different. I'd read about newsrooms being shuttered in other places. I'd never been a part of one that had. So that was kind of uncanny.
We didn't have a whole lot of details, but he wanted Alec Yoshio McDonald and I to be a part of the nonprofit, which started publishing the Nichi Bei Weekly. And so the early days were really stressful. There was just, we were launching a brand new organization while closing out the Nichi Bei Times for profit. The budget was very low, and we were essentially starting from scratch.
So furiously, we tried to use the last 3 publications of the Nichi Bei Times Weekly English edition to get donations, to get subscriptions, because we found out that the Nichi Bei Times board was not going to give us anything.
So then I think that month there was a process of cleaning out the office. I remember just stacks of newspaper everywhere.
Eventually, we inherited some old computers and some old desks. But contrary to belief, we didn't get anything from the Nichi Bei Times. So we had to build everything on our own.
So when the Nichi Bei Times was closing in 2009, it was the tail end of summer of that year, and I was heading into my senior year of college. So I was still just doing a quick internship at the Times, but didn't really quite understand the gravity of the situation in terms of closing and then starting up an entire new nonprofit. For me, I was kind of just working on the paper, and it was just another issue. But at the same time, I kind of realized it was a bigger deal when it had a separate cover, and it was really telling people, no, this is not the Nichi Bei Times anymore. This is the Nichi Bei Weekly and the Nichi Bei Foundation. After that, I had school, so I had to leave, and so was only there for the very first issue of the paper.
Well, for the first issue or two of publishing the Nichi Bei Weekly, we worked out of the National Japanese American Historical Society's office. It was just maybe 3 of us on on computers that weren't connected to a network. So we're using jump drives to share files. It was interesting because staff there was so welcoming. Pete Yamamoto was such a big encourager of our movement and our efforts, and he'd come over and check in on us and wish us well. And it was so sweet. At the same time, we were on deadline trying to frantically publish the 16-page issues. So it was an interesting experience. And then eventually we were able to rent a room in the Japanese Culture and Community Center of Northern California.
Essentially crammed into the basement of the cultural center. It's just like, so you're walking down Sutter and you pass the main entrance up the stairs, you keep going, and there's a bunch of dumpsters. It's like the garbage area.
And so that brought a little more structure. We had our actual desks. We were initially were with time able to be connected to a server and to share files, and there was more structure. So that was helpful. And then, with time, we were then able to move offices again to where we currently are. But it's still very much a grassroots effort. We're a grassroots nonprofit.
So we set out to, in the spirit of the Issei, rebuild brick by brick, because we had to. We figured that if the Issei could come to another land and rebuild their lives in a foreign land, we should be able to too. I mean, speak the language here and everything. So we really took spiritual guidance from people like Kyutaro Abiko, the pioneer, legendary publisher of the Nichi Bei Shimbun, and Shichinosuke Asano, who used the Nichi Bei Times after the war to start a movement for post-war relief of Japan. So in that kind of spiritual sense, we were trying to carry on the legacy of the Nichi Bei that at that time was 110 years old.
Back in the early days, we really were, saying we're the spiritual successor of the Nichi Bei Times. But in the time since then, I think we've managed to really cement our own mark within the community. We don't have to say that, we were formerly staff of the Nichi Bei Times anymore. I think our organization has gained its own sense of legitimacy. A lot of it in part due to, Kenji's work on programming and the continued and thorough editorial voice headed by Kenji and Heather.
Special thanks to the staff and board who recently celebrated this event on Tuesday, September 17th at the KOHO Co-Creative Hub. It's now time for our salad. We get into the multiracial fiber of this show with a reflection of our past Nikkei community intern Erkki Forster, who immigrated to Los Angeles from Switzerland as a Japanese European, and how his experience in America has shaped his understanding of Nikkei here in the US, as well as his struggle to overcome a rare and life-threatening blood disease. Please enjoy our salad mix today.
When I moved from Zurich to Los Angeles as a 12-year-old in November 2016, I would tell people I was half German and half Japanese. I didn't have the concepts or vocabulary that I could use today. Nikkei was a foreign word to me, and the idea that I was Asian hadn't crossed my mind, even though growing up, I had been the only non-white person in my class. In racially homogeneous but multinational Switzerland, race was rarely discussed. I was simply German on my father's side and Japanese on my mother's side, just as my best friend was Italian and Swiss. It was only when my family went to a reading of Fred Korematsu Speaks Up a few weeks after we had settled in Los Angeles that I noticed the way people in the US spoke about their identities was different. Korematsu was Japanese American? A Nisei? I was confused. I was neither American nor was I Shin Issei since I'd immigrated from Europe and had never lived in Japan. And I was equally as dumbfounded to discover that concentration camps once existed in California. That history is rarely taught outside the US. I quickly came to the conclusion that I wasn't and would never be Japanese American. At the same time, I struggled to accept my Asian identity. Harboring internalized racism from growing up surrounded by white classmates in Germany and Switzerland, I felt hurt when a school teacher assumed my race and labeled me as Asian rather than two or more races in the school database. Around the same time, my sister and I began going to Japanese school on weekends, as I had done in Europe, and to judo classes during the week, both at the Japanese Institute of Sawtell. Our parents would drive us to Sawtell 4 days a week, and before I knew it, I was embedded in the Japanese American community for the first time in my life. Saturdays after Japanese school were spent shopping at Nijiya Market. In the winter, we participated in Kagami Biraki at the dojo, and in the summer, we danced at the local Bon Odori. Then, just after I turned 13, I was diagnosed with aplastic anemia, a rare and life-threatening blood disease in which the immune system attacks the bone marrow. I needed a bone marrow transplant, doctors told my family, and we'd have to find a perfect match. There's a 25% chance that a sibling is such a match, but unfortunately, my sister wasn't. We turned to the national database of registered bone marrow donors. Finding a match in the donor registry is difficult for someone like me. Not only are there fewer multiracial people to begin with, but racial minorities are also underrepresented in the donor pool. In 2017, 69% of registered donors were white or Caucasian, and only 6% were mixed race. A preliminary search of the database found no matches, so we were told to launch a donor drive aimed at finding mixed race donors. The focus would be on communities with people of mixed Caucasian and Japanese ancestry like me. Without hesitation, the Sawtell community sprung into action. People spread the word about the drive on social media, registered themselves on a database, and my dojo hosted in-person donor drives at judo tournaments. I will never forget that support I received from my teachers, my friends, and people in the community that I had never met. I realized then that communities are not defined by exclusion along arbitrary lines of race or nationality, but by the readiness of people to support each other. I realized that Sawtell and the broader Japanese American community was my community. Eventually, I recovered through a second course of treatment that did not require a bone marrow transplant. I returned just in time to graduate middle school, and I was thrilled to resume judo in Japanese school. Once in high school, I finally learned how to embrace my Asian identity. This summer, I had the opportunity to intern at the Nichi Bei Foundation through the Nikkei Community Internship. Listening to the attendees of Berkeley's Bon Odori speak about the past, covering the founding of a new Japanese American youth organization, and cheering on Shohei Ohtani with my fellow NCI interns at Oracle Park, I felt myself integrating into the Japanese American community in the Bay Area. Just as in Sawtell, SF's Japantown welcomed me with open arms. Over the last 8 years, I've come to see that there's usually no use in overthinking labels of race, ethnicity, or any kind of group. In the end, labels don't tell you or the other people much about yourself. Who we are is shaped by the communities we engage with, the communities we are indebted to.
A big thank you to Erkki, who is currently undergoing an internship in Washington, D.C., and we wish him the best of luck. Okay, everyone, so for our chef special, Nichi Bei News staff writer Derek Tahara holds a very special interview with recently crowned Miss California, Kimberly Vernon. Kimberly is a multiracial Yonsei as well as a native of Santa Clara, California. She will now compete for the highly coveted Miss America title later on this year. Please enjoy.
Derek Tahara and I sat down with the current Miss California, Kimberly Vernon, a Yonsei on her mother's side, to talk about her multiracial identity and, of course, her Miss California journey.
So I grew up in a very multiracial household. I'm half Japanese and half Belizean. My mom's Japanese, my dad's Belizean. And my older sisters are half Japanese, half Irish. And funny enough, when I was growing up, I was primarily babysat and raised by their grandmother, or also my grandmother, Grandma Mary. And she is a unicorn. She is someone who can really make you feel like the most special person in the world. My great-grandparents immigrated here from Japan in the early 1900s. And so my grandmother was born here, my mom was born here, and I am of the Yonsei generation. A part of, especially on my grandma's side, of being a Japanese American and our history in this country was being interned when she was a little bit younger than I am. I believe she was 20. So she had just become an adult. And then that was when it all happened, and her family were moved over to an internment camp in Utah. And interesting enough, my grandpa, for some reason, didn't have to be interned because he was going to university. So he just went to school in Utah. And then that's how they met. So growing up, I did go to Japanese school for a year, but unfortunately I started a lot older than my classmates. And so whereas many people who were my age probably started around the age of 5, I started around the age of 10. And so they put me in the teen class when I went to Japanese school at the San Jose Buddhist Temple. And that was a challenge because ended up actually being the youngest amongst my classmates. I was 10 and my classmates were around like 13, 14, 15, 16. And so that was a challenge. But what I loved about going to Japanese school was one of the after school programs that I was a part of. It was a dance group. And I remember performing at the Obon in San Jose and at the Obon in San Francisco, and really loving that part of Japanese school. Even though I didn't have many friends at the time, I still was able to like connect with the culture and connect with people in other classes through the after school program. I would say that at least when I was younger, one of the challenges that I faced was that a lot of my immediate family members, we all didn't look the same. And so people would sometimes question that. I remember, again, I was in line for ice cream in elementary school with my grandma Mary, and I was probably in 1st or 2nd grade. And one of my class members looked at me and looked at my grandma and said, "Who is that?" And kind of having to be defensive in a way and be like, "That's my grandma." And they're like, "Well, why doesn't she look like you?" Or like, "Why is she white and why are you brown?" And having to defend my who I was and who I came from in a way at a really young age, I think was one of the first things I noticed. Also, my mom has a Japanese last name. I have a more English last name because I have my dad's last name, which is Vernon. And my older sisters have a different last name. And so feeling somewhat disconnected as a family because our last names weren't the same, but still being so close-knit with one another was a challenge that I experienced. And then along with the fact that I was a lot darker than my siblings, I remember when I was really young, my sisters, who are a lot paler than me, I remember them buying papaya soap. They're like, "Oh, well, you're so tan. Like, maybe you should use this." And for those who don't know, like, papaya soap is often used in some Asian countries to lighten skin. I remember using that when I was probably like 11. So growing up in this multiracial household really did help me see the world in a different way. And even if we don't look the same, we can all love the same. And that's something I carry with me as Miss California because I do represent such a diverse state. When I was 16 years old, my dance teacher, Miss Linnea, came up to me after class and asked if I would be interested in competing for Miss Santa Clara's Outstanding Teen, which is the teen division for the Miss America opportunity. And initially I was not sure if it was for me. My mom and I had watched Toddlers and Tiaras. We weren't sure if pageants were something that I should participate in, but there are a lot of misconceptions about pageants, especially because of, shows like Toddlers and Tiaras. And Linnea let me know that, you could win hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in scholarships. You have the opportunity to perform. You're already really involved in your community and your school. Why not just, try it for fun? And so that's what I ended up doing. I went in, I told the judges I wasn't there to win a title. And I had such a fun experience competing for the first time as a 16-year-old. I won the talent award for the teen division. I was performing ballet on point. And at that same local competition, in the Miss division, Crystal Lee was also a ballerina, and she won the title of Miss Silicon Valley. And then she went on to win Miss California and then be first runner-up in Miss America. And watching her go from that local stage to then being first runner-up in Miss America was so inspiring for me as a 16-year-old who also was Asian American, who also did ballet. And so it took me 7 years to get back on the Miss America stage. And I competed again when how old was I? I competed again in 2020. So that was when I won Miss Santa Clara County. And I competed for 4 years at Miss California until I won this past year. And I won our 100th anniversary celebration. So that was really exciting. I watched Crystal Lee go from the same local stage that I competed on to then being first runner-up at Miss America. And the final two that year were Crystal Lee, so a Chinese American woman, and Davalori, an Indian American woman, being the final two. And that was the first time ever in history that happened, that we had two Asian American women holding hands at that final moment. And that really planted the seed of inspiration for me of wanting to be a Miss California and be on that stage and inspire the next generation like Crystal had for me. And it really, I would say that in some ways, Miss America is representative of the American dream. And that doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you come from, anyone, no matter your background, if you work hard enough, if you have a dream and you chase it and you go for it, you could be on that stage. And so that's what I'm hoping to do this upcoming January when I compete for Miss America.
We wish Kimberly all the good luck and fortune at the Miss America pageant starting at the end of this year. Please wish her luck as well. This is Greg Gloria for Derek Tahara for the Nichi Bei Cafe.
A big thanks to Kimberly for her time, and good luck to her as she hopefully undergoes a title promotion by the end of her campaign. Moving on to your favorite cooking segment, Chef Kota has prepared yet another delicious dish for us to chow down on in this next segment. Mottainai is a Japanese term that represents the principle of not to waste. So in using leftovers, we follow the Japanese principle of no mottainai. Chef Kota takes some common leftovers from your 3-day weekend celebration, Labor Day dinner, whatever you have it, and shows you how to use those ingredients with a Japanese flair. Itadakimasu.
Yahoo! Welcome to Kota's Kitchen. This is a Japanese cooking show that we use this electric skillet in the office setting like this to enjoy the lunch, maybe the breakfast with your coworkers. Today's theme is the leftover food after the long weekend. You might have leftover burger patty like this. Of course, and too much bread may be left in your room, in your kitchen. So just bring it over and let's be creative just a little bit to make something tasteful for your coworkers. Today, I'm going to make the French toasts by using the burger buns. After, I'm going to make the scrambled eggs with the bagel party. All right, so let's make a French toast mix. So we are going to use 4 eggs. Good. It's not gonna break. Okay, I'm going to use this part. So I have about 6 burger buns left. So I'm using 4 eggs. We need 200 milliliter of milk, and then heavy cream. Again, 200 milliliters. Then 4 tablespoons of sugar. Then here's a secret taste. I usually use vanilla extract for the little accent. Not much, but yeah. So now you have to mix well. I wish I have a whisk. Alright, so French toast mix is well mixed. So let's add burger buns. You know, we usually use the square, bread, but today we are being creative, burger buns. So usually when you make a French toast, you soak in for at least like 5-10 minutes to get fully soaked. But this is a very casual cooking. As far as the liquid part is soaked in well, yeah, you can start cooking. I'm transferring into this plate because I'm going to microwave a little bit to soften up. Alright, so microwave this for about 1 minute. Alright, 1 minute. It doesn't make big difference, but I hope it does. Microwave part is done, and now I'm going to cook on the hot plate. So the temperature is about 250, not too hot because it might take some time to gradually cook inside. On the skillet, we use butter. Cook on the bread part. This is so unusual to have a sesame seed in a French toast. Oh, by the way, so this French toast mix, I add milk, heavy cream, sugar, and vanilla extract. For this show, I kind of researched it, and lots of people use heavy cream and milk together. So I kind of experimented at home by using a heavy cream, and then that came out really good. So yeah, thanks for all the recipes from everywhere. All right, looks good. All right, now let's cook this for 5 minutes. All right, so while waiting for the French toast to be cooked, let's get the scrambled egg pot ready. So first, I need a 60 milliliter of heavy cream, and then 4 eggs. One probably tablespoon of mayonnaise. So just mix. All right, 5 minutes has passed. Let's look at the color of the one side of French toast. All right, let's see. If the color is good, I'll flip it and then cook for another 5 minutes. Oh, look at that. So I'm going to flip everything. So okay, everything's flipped back. So another 5 minutes. Right, the other side cooking is done, hopefully. Ooh, look at that. I have to make a scrambled egg, so I will place the French toast on the plate first. Right, the plate is still hot. and I'm adding the temperature to 300 and now making a scrambled egg. All right, for the breakfast, yeah, you know, if you have a French toast, you need a scrambled egg, right? Why not? So again, it's a butter. Right, and the scrambled egg. Yeah. Oh, ready? All right, scrambled egg. Yes, of course, it's easy to cook. It's so fast. Okay, now I'm adding the leftover burger patty. Maybe for this much, maybe 3. All right, so. Oh, it's hard to break. Oh, okay, I cannot break it. Let's see. Oh,
Take it out and put it on the.
no. I have another one. Yeah, easier. Oh boy, yeah. I am so prepared, you know. I get it from my home. I'm adding salt and pepper. Another Mottainai. Probably this is coming from some kind of to-go that we order in the past. Right, I reduced the heat to 200 just because I didn't want to burn the egg. All right, the scrambled egg with the leftover burger is done. Let's eat. All right, for the French toast, yeah, you can add whatever you like on top. I prefer a slice of butter. Yeah, I love maple syrup. All right, and then it's a whole package today. Leftover scrambled egg, burger patty. There you go.
Actually, that should be like the North Star of the show, right? Just like get sponsored by Taco.
Yeah. Because leftover. Today's theme, leftover food.
Many thanks to Kota for yet another delicious office meal, and hopefully he got you thinking of how creative you can be with leftover food as well. So next up, we share some noteworthy stories from the community news files. Director, you know what time it is.
Next is our News Bites, highlighting events over the past month or so, including stories from the pages of the Nichi Bei News. Let's roll the News Bites, please.
So let's roll the news bites. The news bites rolling. Through the magic of technology, Nobuko Miyamoto taught Bon Odori remotely on September 7th at the KOHO Co-Creative Hub in San Francisco's Japantown. The American Bon Consortium held the workshop in collaboration with their Bon Odori exhibit held at the National Japanese American Historical Society, also in J-Town. emceed by Win Kiyama, a musicologist who co-curated the Bon Odori exhibit. The program started with attendees learning to dance Bon Odori no Uta and Tankobushi. Reiko Iwanaga taught the dances. The workshop preceded the Bon Odori that followed the next day at the Yerba Buena Gardens in downtown San Francisco. The dance, held on September 8th, celebrated the 125th anniversary of the Buddhist Churches of America, which started in San Francisco in 1899. The American Bon Odori, Dancing in Joy and Remembrance exhibit is on view at the National Japanese American Historical Society at 1684 Post Street through September 30th. Visit www.ninjas.org or call 415-921-5007 for their hours. In celebration of the closing of the Obon season, KOHO SF held their third annual BonPop, bringing hundreds of people together at the Botanical Gardens in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park on August 31st. BonPop, a reimagined Bon Odori, welcomes a local, citywide, and regional audience to immerse themselves in the Japanese tradition of honoring ancestors through dance, song, and rituals, accessible to all regardless of religion, faith, ethnicity, and cultural beliefs. The festival features a vibrant blend of taiko drumming by Melody Takata of Genryu Arts, live folk music by Ensauza, and bon odori dancing, showcasing the rich heritage and talent of our local Japantown artists and cultural practitioners. Continuing the festivities, food and diverse communities are on display outside the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco on the Lawrence and Goretti Louis Hyde Street art wall. Chelsea Ryoko Wong grew up eating dim sum with her family. The idea of coming together for a meal was the genesis of her new mural, Community Feast. The wall is a 9-panel, 7x40-foot site. Wong, who is of Chinese and Japanese descent, told the Nichi Bei News that she wanted to celebrate the Asian community, but not have it exclusively for the Asian community. She wanted people from all different communities to feel seen within the work. Wong was moved during the pandemic in response to some of the violence in San Francisco, she said. The Yonsei, who grew up in Seattle, said the mural depicts a fictionalized dim sum restaurant. People from different ethnic backgrounds are eating dim sum and enjoying each other's company. Community Feast is located outside of the Asian Art Museum, which is at 200 Larkin Street in San Francisco. Japan's mega monster, Godzilla, roared over San Francisco's Japantown recently as GodzillaFest made its way through the neighborhood to celebrate 70 years of Godzilla films. The goals of this event were to bring crowds back to Japantown and into the restaurants and shops to enjoy a complete Japanese cultural experience while taking part in the Godzilla convention. The festival included panels, cosplay, a stamp rally, and films, including a special outdoor presentation of Godzilla vs. King Kong on the Buchanan Mall. Lastly, the Nichi Bei Foundation and Nichi Bei News recently celebrated its 15th anniversary on September 17th, 10 years to the very day when the first edition of the nonprofit Nichi Bei newspaper rose out of the ashes of the historic Nichi Bei Times in 2009. As part of our Nichi Bei Day of Giving campaign, the Nichi Bei Foundation held an intimate event honoring donors, recognizing 3 of our largest donors, the Craig Foundation, represented by Craig Harmer, the Kinjiro and Eiko Moriguchi Fund, represented by Edie Moriguchi Horner, and Masako Takahashi of the Henry and Tomoe Takahashi Charitable Foundation. The event featured performances by Kulin Taiko, a collaboration of Filipino Kulintang and Japanese Taiko, as well as a beautiful performance by the Nikkei Chorale Ensemble of UC Berkeley. Thanks, in large part, to a $65,000 matching donation from the Craig Foundation, as well as a $24,500 donation from the Kinjiro and Eiko Moriguchi Fund, and many other donors, we have reached our goal of raising $150,000. And on behalf of the board and staff here at the Nichi Bei Foundation, we thank you with everything we are for your continued support. For those interested, you can still contribute to the Nichi Bei Day of Giving campaign through September 31st at nichibei.org/give. For more up-to-date news like this, please be sure to subscribe to the Nichi Bei News, carrying on a legacy of 125 years of community leadership through media at nichibei.org/subscribe. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for our episode featuring multiculturalism in our community. We hope that you enjoyed what we, and of course all of our featured chefs, cooked up for the cafe menu today. At this point, we want to give a big thanks to the Henry and Tomoe Takahashi Charitable Foundation for their continued support of the cafe. We greatly appreciate our collaboration with you in finding new ways to engage our Nikkei community. We would like to thank everyone for continuing to support our YouTube channel, and hope you enjoy our future content featuring our Japanese and Japanese American community. So please continue to support us by telling your friends, family, and loved ones to subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Facebook page, to like this episode and comment down below as well. To stay in the know of more happenings in the Japanese American community, please consider becoming a member of our Nichi Bei community to help support what we do here at nichibei.org/subscribe. emceed by Win Kiyama, a musicologist who co-curated the Bon Odori exhibit. The program started. Through the magic of technology, Nobuko. The American Bon Consortium held the workshop in collaboration with their Bon Odori exhibit held at the National Japanese American Historical Society, also in the American Louis Hyde Street Art. Oh my god. Already Louis Hyde Street Art Wall. Can't abbreviate it. Please.